We are everything as actors. We are actors, we are writers, we are directors. That's a part and parcel of what we do. It's just, there's a third eye that directs ourselves sometimes. As I said, it's not unlike Henry Moore sculpting a big statue of an animal saying, you know, it's not all that difficult. I just chip away what isn't an elephant. And that's what we're doing. We're chipping away at what isn't somehow what feels right. Well, that's authorship. And it's also being a self-director. And sometimes those people feel like we're stepping on their feet. The more talented they are, the more generous they are, the less threatened they are. So, yes, you have to play the game. We all have to play the game. It's a part of life. You have to find a way to get your point across. You have to find a way to sometimes saying, I think you said it was your idea. You know, to manipulate. Yes, you manipulate many times because you're trying to get your own kernel of what you feel is true to get it across. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But don't allow yourself to be cast by the profession itself as I'm just an actor, meaning I just do what I'm told. I just memorize and I go left or I go right. You're filled with stuff. I'm making a film called Marathon Man. Laurence Olivier, one of the great actors of our time, is going to be in it. I later learned he didn't want to be in it. He had so many illnesses, including cancer and gout, and that he was battling. The only reason he did it was because he wanted to. He knew he was dying, and he wanted to be able to leave money to his children, and they were giving him a large salary, a very handsome salary, to do this film. And that's the reason he decided to do, basically, we became friends. But the first day we met, I had already been shooting a couple weeks, and we're in Central Park. And this is a man who had done Shakespeare. I don't think it exists anymore, where you'll do Richard III in the afternoon, and at night you might do Hamlet, and the next day you'll do Henry V, and sometimes or do two performances of Hamlet in a day. We're shooting for a couple of weeks. I'm waiting for, and we're very excited and nervous. And John Schlesinger, the great British director who had directed Midnight Cowboy, which I had been lucky enough to be in, we're there in Central Park, and Olivier comes in for his first day of work, and he has this limp because of his gout. He's like a general, though, on the battlefield. With bullets in him, and never complained at any point. Was under painkillers, but he was the bravest, most stoic actor I'd ever worked with. And this actor who had had 4 or 5 Shakespearean roles memorized in his day was having trouble getting through a paragraph of lines because of the pain and the painkillers he was taking, and which might have been one of the reasons he didn't want to take the job in the first place. So he has this German accent, and we're doing these takes, and the scene is he has a suitcase with diamonds, that it's a part of the plot, and he says, and they're getting down to, we did a 2-shot, whatever it was, now getting to the point in the afternoon, I can tell he's tired, and he's saying, don't you want to see the diamonds? Don't you want to see the diamonds? And he's somehow, because he had done wonderful work in films, but he was somehow as if it was like he was on the stage suddenly, playing to the last row in the balcony. It was too big. And we're doing take after take, a few takes, and I go up to John Schlesinger, and I said, John, he's a little big. He says, I know. And we're doing, take it, let's try it again, and he's giving him kind of around curve directions without saying, you're hamming it, whatever, don't you want to see the diamonds? And I go up to him and I said, John, I said, you're not going to have any alternatives in the cutting room. And John, who's no longer with us, but it's a story that he enjoyed years later also hearing. And he says, I know. And he had the thing around his neck, which they use, the follow focus. And he says, yes, I am not going to tell the great Laurence Olivier that he's overacting. If you want to do it, be my guest. Okay, give me a couple minutes. And I walk over to him, and all the crew's waiting. And I said, I wasn't yet calling him Lordage. I said, Lord Olivier, I said, when we were doing this before, and sometimes just running the lines, why don't you've done it. I mean, you've done terrific takes here. I said, why don't you just do one like when we were just running the lines, like, just saying, do you want to see the dime? Just to have it. And he's no dummy. And he just looks at me and he says, dear boy, probably the first time he called me, it's the first day of work. Are you trying to tell me that I'm over the top? And I said, I'm suddenly become Woody Allen. No, I don't. No, I just, and he says, say it. Have I been over the top? Is that what you're trying to tell me? And here's two actors looking at each other in the eye. And I said, yes. And he looked at me a long time. It's one of the great memories I have. Thank you. And he did it. He just said the line. And that's one of the things I don't think actors know when they're working, is the importance of having each other. I had no choice. It was the animal that I was. I grew up in this extremely tense house, and being always told that I didn't know anything, and trying to fulfill the feelings that my father had about me. You want me to be a failure? Let me show you what a good failure I can be. And I grew up to be a failure. It's one of the reasons I liked acting, because it's a community of failures, and there's a respect in being a failure, especially in my day, because it was the 60s. It was Bob Dylan. It was a beat generation, and not getting employed many times we thought, was selling out. So not having employment was a kind of a indication that you were an artist and that you had a sense of integrity. And there was no choice, so that if I had arguments in what we called off Broadway productions, I would just say no. And it was the most wonderful thing to no longer be in my home that I grew up in, and to be able to say, go fuck yourself, and walk out. And I did that many times. I said, hey, I love this profession. I don't have to do it. And there was no choice there. It was just, and I wasn't any different than Duval. He used to make fun of this pretty good British director who he had to come. It was a story he loved to tell, where he said, he called me Dustbone, Bobby, and he said, Dustbone. He says, I did this great close-up last night. It was a TV thing. He says, and I was crying, and I was really in the moment. He said, I came back to work the next day, and this English director said to me, let's pick up from where we were. We got to have another one. He says, so just start doing a sense memory and then just fake it. And he couldn't, and he loved that story, because he looked at the director and he said, go fuck yourself, because the director was trying to pretend that he knew what the method was or sense memory was. And we were like that. Gene Hackman was like that. The director says, okay, here's a lineup of hats. Which one do you want to wear? He had 6 different hats. And Gene said, none of them. He says, no, you have to wear a hat. Pick one. He said, I'm not wearing any of them. He says, no, you have to. He says, I said, I'm not wearing a hat. And there are stories that are legioned rather, and you know, Gene Hackman picked up a director and threw him from one end of the wall to the other. But we were passionate. I've seen directors, I've worked with directors, I won't name them, where we're doing comedy, and now you have playback, and we look at the take, and I say, can I do another take? I don't think it's right. It's not funny, I can feel it. No, 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 it's great, because they always have to move on. You know, you only learn how, you know, what a treacherous tightrope a director is on in terms of what they, you know, what they have to fulfill in a day, because they keep that from you usually. That they're on a, you know, on the clock is ticking, and I'll look at and I looked at the take, and I saw the director going ha ha ha, and I went home and I told my wife, when you see a director laughing like a balloon cartoon, HA-HA-HA, you know you're in trouble. if that's them laughing, ha ha ha, literally did that. Said, see, look how funny it is, ha, ha, ha. I mean, you know, I remember saying, he's a friend now, and I remember saying to him after a week, I called my agent, I said, get me out of here. I can't make this movie with this guy. I want out. And of course you can't do it. I mean, the studio will sue you and whatever, you know, millions, whatever, of dollars that they think the movie's gonna make. So there's this wonderful scene that we have in a room, and the director is looking at me, he says, I heard that you wanted to get out of the movie. I said, yes, sir. I said, I think you're doing a great job, but I said, we just don't see the same things in the same way. He said, no, I'll go. You stay. And we had an argument for a half hour, which actually brought us closer together, because at least we were able to see the humor in that. No, you go, you know, you stay, I'll go. I said, no, I'll go, you stay. We both wanted out. The main thing you have to do on the set is to have a relaxation, and to suggest that you're just, particularly today, like what's happening now, I think what's being used on me is not a 35 millimeter film. It's what's the word again? Digital. It's digital. So you can just keep rehearsing and rehearsing and rehearsing and rehearsing, and filmmaking is getting very much closer to the way it was during the silent movies, in that the directors are standing off camera telling the actors what to do during a take. I know David O. Russell, who has done wonderful work, talks to the actors constantly. He's in another room, he's looking at the monitor, and I've worked with him, and he's working, he's saying, oh, that's a piece of shit. Say that line again. And you do it again, and we keep doing it, and Lily Tomlin and I are standing there. Finally, I just said, David, do me a favor. Which one of us is a piece of shit? Me or Lily? We're just a little, or both of us. But I don't mind it, because it all feels like rehearsal. And you just keep doing it all day long, and you establish a living and breathing atmosphere, which, you know, doesn't exist always on sets. They say, quiet on the set, and the life is sucked out. We are directors as well as actors. We are the director to each other many times. Yes, we are trying to fulfill the vision of the director, but we are also, you know, I always, many times I've thought it's like those old movies that you see on TCM or whatever, those old prison movies with Cagney, you know, where they're all of those, you know, in the joint, you know, in whatever, Alcatraz, they're talking out of the side of their mouth, you know, and they say, shh, here comes a screw, you know, which is the guard. And that's what actors do between takes. You know, they say, you know, the director wants me to do it bigger, but I don't think I should. Well, don't do it. Shh, here comes the screw. You know, you got to stop talking. Hey, hi, how are you? You say to the director. But many times you are modulating for each other.